Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to start by directing a question to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. I have heard the Bangko Sentral governor several times and read it several times also mention the term sweet spot of the Philippine economy that we're going to reach by 2015. Deputy Governor Gunigundo, would you please educate us on what this means?
I think the sweet spot refers to the fact that the Philippines enjoys a very young population. The profile of our population can be characterized as young, such that in a few years, most of this will be in the working age population. That's one. Second, normally, a young population is correlated with one, gains in labor productivity because they're young, they're energetic, they can be trained anytime. And secondly, a young population also provides a big market for our goods and our services. Now, many countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and other similar economies in the region enjoy that kind of sweet spot, which actually happens a few years after that kind of observation is made. Normally, Mr. Chairman, another sweet spot, which if I may be permitted to discuss, is a sweet spot where you have a good convergence of very robust economic growth and low inflation rate. This is where we are right now. In the first quarter, we managed to grow by 6.4%. while inflation rate was doing at just about 3%. In the past, it's one way or the other. Either we have a very high economic growth and a very high inflation, or vice versa. But today, we are enjoying the kind of sweet convergence between high growth and low inflation.
And the young population, which I understand is about an average of 22 or 23, may be attributable to more babies being born than people dying?
Well, that can be one factor.
Because how can you produce a young population without babies being born?
In other words, I think the challenge remains with the public sector to provide the infrastructure and the job opportunities so that we would be able to leverage on the existence of our young population that could otherwise truly provide a very productive labor force, and at the same time an expanded market for our goods and our services. And I think we cannot overemphasize the importance of domestic demand, especially at this point, when external markets are not doing very well, and therefore our exports have very limited viability today. But if we have domestic demand that is robust, as one can see, because of the young population, because of the inflows of overseas remittances, investments have been going up. These are what will drive economic growth moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, what is your program now to make that young population more robust? In other words, increase their purchasing power? Because that seems to be the key to really reaching the sweet spot by 2015.
Well, there are a number of programs
to empower them economically.
There are a number of programs that the government, especially in this coming budget, that the government has funded to make sure that we reach that point. Of course, one of them is this huge investment in basic education, which includes also investment in health programs, because these two go together very well. In fact, even more basic is the huge investments that we are making in CCP, which is really directed at the children of the kids in the family. But on top of that, in certain areas, for example, like BOP, where we cannot wait for people to go through the long cycle of education until they graduate from college. An intervention from the TESDA, for example. A good example is BPO. We invested 600 million. This is in partnership with BPAC, where we accelerated the training of faculty to be able to conduct BPO training, as well as provide support to about more than 75,000 potential BPO employees. The other one, which has also received substantial support, is the increased investments in the state universities and colleges, where part of the condition for increasing the budget by more than 40% is they're agreeing to implement a roadmap. And one of them has to do really with doing R&D and partnering with industry for projects like what you mentioned. In fact, together with that program is about 1.9 billion pesos, and this is a project with the UPERD team and Dr. Dato Manataw and some universities in the US to train faculties in leading higher educational institutions, so that we're able to generate more MAs and PhDs, especially in the hard sciences area. So there's quite a number of interventions to bring that about, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, because I understand that Mr. Panata may have a bigger R&D budget than the R&D budget of the DOST. He is going into venture capital, for example, in the amount of $10 million, and that's quite a hefty budget for one venture.
Well, he's objective in this program because he observed that India is a world economic power, or an emerging world economic power that it is right now, and they took 10 years to generate an infrastructure of very skilled manpower. And he thinks that with this intervention, the Philippines should be able to do it in 5 years. So I think it's a program that really has huge potential because it connects Philippine universities to universities where he served as a board, like UC Berkeley, San Francisco, Yale, and other universities where he sits in the board.
On the BPO, Mr. Secretary, and I'd like to address the NEDA also. The President in his SONA talked about his projection that by 2016, the BPO industry can reach about 1.3 million employees and an income of about $25 billion. That's a few years from now, and that will be easily maybe about 10% of the GDP. But we are a country that is not recognizing this by way of creating a separate department to address the BPO. Why is this so, Mr. Secretary?
Well, those numbers actually came from the BPAP, the Business Process Outsourcing Association of the Philippines. And it's premised on the industry growing, presently it's growing at a rate of 20%. It's premised on the industry growing at a rate of 25%. And they presented us with a slew of interventions that are necessary if the Philippines is to be able to reach that level of growth. Now, the President feels that while it is important to strengthen government institutions that can help promote the ICT BPO sector, he thinks that we really need to seriously study whether it is beneficial for government to add another bureaucracy and layers of bureaucracies that can assist the industry. One option we're looking at, since I think the weakness is in business promotions, and the Department of Trade and Industry has been tasked to look at how we can support the BPO sector in terms of business promotions.
To the Bangko Sentral of Pilipinas, what is your projection of the GIR by the end of the year and by 2016?
Mr. Chairman, earlier the Governor made reference to our revised forecast of $77 billion. But at the rate capital flows have been coming in, as well as those structural flows, including exports, BPO revenues, tourism, and of course, foreign direct investment and portfolio investment. We're looking at between $78 to $79 billion at the end of the year. This is a soft number, Mr. Chairman, and subject to further validation in the next few months.
The other question that I have, Mr. Chairman, is with respect to your projection, this is NEDA, your projection on trade. Imports increasing by 14% and exports increasing by 12%. So there's a 2% difference that further aggravates the trade imbalance. And the trade imbalance is almost going to be equal to the level of OFW remittances. Why is this? So you're expecting more imports than exports, and a higher growth for export or for imports?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We expect that as the economy accelerates, the demand for imports will surge, especially for capital investments. Firms will be building plants and equipments, government will be building infrastructure, and these are very highly import-intensive, Mr. Chair. So we expect that as the capacity of the economy to generate outputs for exports, our investors will bring in imports, particularly capital, Mr. Chair.
Okay. On the interest rate, as well as the projected exchange rate, normally, when you increase the interest rate, it is to strengthen your exchange rate, depending on the situation. Now, in your projection for the exchange rate, you're projecting 42 to 45, although right now the trend is for it to get lower and lower. And then your exchange, your T-bill rate will increase in 2013 from 2.5 to 4.5 this year to 3 to 5 next year. So you are expecting the exchange rate to weaken with respect to the peso, but you're expecting the interest rate to increase as far as T-bills. This seems to be contrary to normal expectations, economic projections, when you correlate the interest rate with exchange rate. Why is that so, Mr. Governor?
That is normally the case, Mr. Chairman, but it was deliberate on our part to formulate our exchange rate projection 42 to 45 in a range as wide as that, because I think we believe that a range such as 42 to 45 can very well capture the possible outcome of any change in the interest rate from now until the following year. Otherwise, you will have some speculation in the market. And at the same time, Mr. Chairman, this is something that is driven by the fiscal health. In other words, if the government will not need any additional resources, the borrowing will be much less. And I think the government is targeting a lower deficit to GDP ratio. Then our interest rate projection may have to be recast to capture the increasing improvement in the public finance. So this is something, Mr. Chairman, that perhaps we can recalibrate later on. But just to emphasize, our wide exchange rate range can capture the outcome of possible changes in the interest rate.
I'm just wondering why, this is my last question. I'm just wondering why you have such a big gap. Because in the US, for example, if Mr. Bernanke will be talking of such a big gap, it's going to distort the market in a very significant way. But in your case, from 3 to 5, and then you're projecting an exchange rate of from 42 to 45, which is contrary to what we are observing right now.
We have a different conditions, what the U.S. Economy is experiencing today, Mr. Chairman. In our case, I think it is important that we allow the market to have some kind of a two-way bet on the peso. If they think that that's going to be firm, let's say between 41 to 41.50, that's going to be a one-way bet against the Philippine peso. And you will see some of these capital flows surging all the more because they can take a bet on the peso being very, very firm within a very short range. So I think a wide range of 42 to 45 can precisely address the propensity of the market to speculate.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the economic managers. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bolas. Honorable Mariano.